Welcome, guys, back to the I Love Wrestling podcast. I'm your host, as always, Justin Woolwine. Today, we are welcomed with Damon Ace. How are we doing, man?
I'm well. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Excited to get you on here. Um, Ready to get the ball rolling. Before we get started, would you like to shout out your social medias? Let the fans know where they can keep up with you, and stay up to date.
Yeah, my socials are all the same. It's all at Damon Ace on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and my YouTube channel is the official Weapon 95.
I love it. I love it. Easy, simple. Seeing as how we are the I Love Wrestling podcast, I kind of try to go through the full wrestling journey. We all have a moment in time where we became a fan of this. So when did Damon find professional wrestling?
So it's interesting because it was kind of I loved it, then I didn't, then I fell in love with it again, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So I fell in love initially with wrestling when I was 12. I don't remember exactly what match it was, but my dad took me to this restaurant called Ben and Jerry's down here, and they had a pay-per-view on, and I'm pretty sure it was Undertaker versus maybe Randy Orton. I'm not exactly sure. Either way, but I fell in love with it, and I started to become quite an avid watcher. And I decided at 12, 13 years old that I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And then when I got into high school, I kind of fell into the wrong crowd, I guess you would say.
Okay.
I was kind of the bad kid doing the bad stuff, which is apropos to who I am now. So, but I kind of fell out of it, and then I would say about my junior or senior year, I had a pretty scary ordeal with. I was doing a lot of drugs at the time while I was in high school, and I had a pretty scary like health scare with that. And I just decided I was like, this is not what I want for my life. This is not what I want to be doing. And ironically enough, I was like, I think it was the day after I had kind of made that decision. I was scrolling on TV and there was a Friday Night SmackDown on, and I'm pretty sure it was a rerun. But when I turned it on, it was CM Punk, and he was doing his Straight Edge Society with Luke Gallows and all of them. And I kind of started diving into what that subculture was and what straight edge was and all of those things. And I was like, that guy is who I want to be. And I mean, I obviously, since I had watched it previously, I knew who CM Punk was, but I never really knew about that stuff until I was 15 or 16. And so it kind of saved my life, honestly. Like, I became straight edge. I still am to this day. I owe my whole life to CM Punk. I think that if I wouldn't have seen that, I probably would have continued down a relatively dark path and maybe not be here today. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, like, for me, wrestling is more than just a love or a passion. It's something that I feel like I owe my life to. If that doesn't sound like too crazy to say.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah. So that's kind of been my journey. And then after that, I decided again, I was like, I'm going to go do this, and you start telling everybody, like, this is my dream. This is what I'm going to go do. I'm going to pursue this. And everybody tells you it's stupid and you'll never make it and this and that. So I kind of bought into that, didn't pursue it right away. So from the time I was 18 until I was 22, I was a mixed martial artist. I competed in Muay Thai and Jiu Jitsu multiple times, took silver in the state tournament here. Um, and then I just kind of fell out of love with it. And I was like, this is not what I want to do with my life. And I knew what I wanted to do. So at 22, I just decided to quit doing the mixed martial arts entirely and pursue professional wrestling. And I've been doing it ever since.
Okay. Okay. Um, we'll get there, but I'm interested in the straight edge aspect. What was some of the biggest challenges from, going through the struggles of what addiction and things like that can have on your life, and then becoming straight edge?
I think I think when you have a moment kind of like I did, like I'll just be open and honest. I don't really care that much. Like I almost died. I almost overdosed. And when that kind of thing happens, it really sets into perspective, what you want out of life. And at that point, you have a pivotal decision to make. You can either continue down the road that you're on, and maybe next time you're not so lucky, or you change it and you become somebody else. And I was just like, I needed to become somebody else. I needed to behave differently. I needed to do different things. I needed to become more of a man and stop acting like a kid, I guess, in a way. Um, but I mean, it's always hard. I think a lot of people struggle with what their life would become afterwards, because you get so used to what my life is while I'm doing this that you can't think about what your life would be after it. And it almost always will be better, but getting through that is probably the worst moment of your life. Like, I, outside of like the health stuff and, feeling bad and going through withdrawals and all that stuff, I lost all my friends. I was alone. So you kind of have to navigate that now. Like, I don't really have a support system. I can't really tell my, my parents or anybody that I was out doing these things, because God forbid they find out. So you're just kind of alone. And just to rotate it back to wrestling, like, thank God I found what I found, because that became my support system. I lived vicariously through guys like CM Punk and dedicated my life to that.
I
So I
just
guess in a way, like, I'm thankful that I found something that allowed me to pivot my my attention away from what I was doing currently to something more productive with my life.
yeah, definitely. I just, for one, I want to say thank you for sharing. Had
Yeah.
people very close to me um, overdose on the phone and things like that, and I've helped people. Like, I've helped my dad through addiction many times. So those stories and those things you've been through, it might help somebody else. So
Yeah.
that's why I always like to try to highlight the positive aspect of those when I can. So thank you
Yes.
once again for sharing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um,
I feel like if I can ever, and maybe it sounds egotistical, but like, if I can ever be that person to somebody else, like he was for me, then
100%.
I've done more in this world than I could ever, hope for. So
Definitely, because I mean, like you said in your aspect, I mean, you feel like that moment or watching that segment may have saved you or saved your life. If you can do that for somebody else, that's I guess the best gift you could ever do, or
yeah,
the achievement you could ever achieve, is helping somebody else not go down that path.
for sure.
Um, something fun I always like to also ask on here is like there's different aspects of professional wrestling, whether it's the physicality, the storytelling, the characters. What about wrestling realistically made you fall in love with it?
Honestly, it's the stories and
Okay.
character work. Like, I, I'm one of those guys. Like, of course, like, you love great matches, right?
Yes.
But I don't really care for how many cool moves you can do or how athletic you are. I care about, so like, for instance, my two favorite matches of all time are CM Punk and John Cena Money in the Bank 2011, and Undertaker versus Triple H with Shawn Michaels as a guest referee, Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania. And like, why are those my two favorite matches? Because the stories that they told building up to that meant something, where they could have, like, they obviously all went out and had great matches, but they could have gone out and done nothing. And I still would have loved the match because of everything that had been put into getting to that point. That's what I love about wrestling. That's what I'm like super, super passionate about. And I've always been a creative, character driven type of person. I write a lot. I've, attempted to write a couple of books. Uh, but like, developing characters or like telling a story, the psychology of what we're doing, making people care, is what I'm passionate about. I don't really care so much to go out and do all the cool stuff. I'm a pretty good athlete. I can do a lot of cool stuff, but I don't need to if I can build something that people are invested in, if that
That
makes sense.
makes a lot of sense. I couldn't agree more. Honestly, that's you summed up why I love wrestling just about in the same way.
Yeah.
Um, what about the honestly, just because of the John Cena CM Punk match, it's honestly one of my favorite matches of all time. I, as an 11-year-old, almost cried when I really thought Punk was leaving. What about that match or that scenario really drove you to that story?
I think it was really like and they talk about it in one of the promos, but it was the underdog versus the system. That's how
Hmm.
I viewed it. Like CM Punk definitely came across as he was like the underdog type of guy that everybody began to love, whilst the system was trying to make us love somebody that we didn't.
Okay.
And it developed into what it developed into. And like a lot of people say exactly what you said, like they were sad that Punk left. And they were like, "Oh God, I'm so sad that he's leaving." And I was so happy. I was like, "Good."
Okay.
Are we allowed to curse on here at all or no?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dude, I was like, "Good, fuck them, fuck these guys." Like, leave. I'm a kid at the time too, and that's why I hated Vince and I hated John Cena and I hated all of them. I was like, "Fuck them, leave. Take your belt and go home." And then he posted the picture that he put the belt in the fridge,
In
and
the
I was like,
fridge.
"This is the greatest thing I've ever watched."
I
Like,
loved
good
it.
for you. And then when he did end up leaving for real, I was like definitely like bummed about it. But you listen to him and you're like, yeah, man, you're like people can only take so much before they need to step away from anything.
Yes.
And so many people have held it against him, whether it's for promos or story wise or in reality. I just never have. Like he did, I think what was best for him. And to me, as somebody who is like an avid fan and also who sees like a lot of who I am now as a person in him, I'm like, yeah, I would have probably done the same thing. So to me, like it just in a roundabout way, it is to say like it felt real to me. That's what I loved
Yeah.
about it. It felt very real.
Okay. I think for me, it was one of those as an 11-year-old, I don't think I understood it completely. I just knew, like, hey, this guy, CM Punk, that more resembles me than John Cena
Yeah,
is leaving. And then it was like, but now as an adult or like as I grew up, it was like, okay, he did the right thing then. And then in 2014, like you said, I think he did the right thing,
yeah,
especially once you got to hear the story and why it happened.
hmm
And that stuff is just, um, it was one of those that really just made things click, I guess, for me.
for sure.
And,
Yeah, absolutely.
um, you mentioned how character work is something very big uh, for you, that it's one of those things you definitely care about. What or who are some of the biggest inspirations behind the Damon Ace character
Do you want wrestling inspiration or just like in totality?
in totality?
Okay, so wrestling, it's Karrion Cross
I
is a
love
huge
him.
inspiration. Bray Wyatt, huge inspiration. Those are kind of like really the two I would say that fit the character as far as wrestlers. But the main basis for it comes a lot from Negan in The Walking Dead,
Okay.
Doomhead from 31, if you've ever seen that.
No, but I'll have to check it out.
The movie is not good, but
Okay.
his character is brilliant.
Okay.
And I can't remember his name, but Gary Oldman's character in Leon the Professional.
I don't remember his name either.
I don't remember his name either, but like those three characters are very much like who Damon Ace is built around. So
Okay.
very, very psychological, very cold, cunning, calculated, sociopath, doesn't care about the rules, knows what he's doing is wrong, but will do it anyways because I'm so driven to succeed and be the best at this that if I ever feel like I'm being threatened or that that's going to be taken away from me, I always know in the bottom of my heart that I'm willing to go farther than any other human being will go to secure what I want to secure.
I like that because, like, I remember going back to like the Negan example. Like, I remember watching The Walking Dead. He was one of those characters that is so evil you almost like him. And so that's very interesting because I mean that's how I see a Karrion Cross. When I watch
Yes.
Karrion Cross, he's so evil and so calculated. To most people or the casual audience, they're not going to like Karrion Cross.
Yeah.
But to somebody who understands the story and to why what's going on is happening and to understand his motives, he's going to appeal to you.
Yeah.
Is that why those guys like stuck out to you?
Um, I I think this is going to kind of sound a little crazy, but I think it was more so like anytime in wrestling when you're developing something, right? Like they tell you be so like if you're like if we're using the terms, if you're a baby face or you're a heel, if you're a baby face, you take all the good parts of you and you dial it up to 12. And if
Hmm.
you're a heel, you take all the bad parts of you and you dial it up to 12. There is like a real part of my brain that is just like not right and is like very dark. Like I've been obsessed with serial killers since I was 10 years old. Like it's there's something there that's not great. And like thank God I had great parents that raised me really well because I don't know who I would be if I didn't. um, but like I've always been driven to those types of people. Like even I'm a huge comic book fan. So
Okay.
even the villains in comic books, I don't really care so much for the big brutish, cool alien looking dudes, but like the guys like Joker or Bane or Lex Luthor, like those dudes were always really cool to me. Like I really liked them, and I found myself like almost rooting for them because there's this cerebral thought process with all those guys, even like with the Joker, everybody like they think it's all chaos, but like you can't have chaos be that coordinated and he's always where he needs to be and he does the things that he wants to do and he gets the things that he wants. If you're truly just chaotic, none of those things would happen, right? So you have to think he's been thinking about those things and then playing it off like, oh, I'm this crazy dude who's just doing these things, but that's not the case. And like with Bane, it's the same way. He's everybody thinks he's this big dumb brute, but he's actually ungodly smart, and like those types of characters to me are awesome. And that's why I love Karrion Cross because like you were talking about, he's so evil, but you almost like him. But it's also like all the little things that he does, the stories that he tells you through the little moments, right? Like he can cut a 5 minute promo, but it can mean 100 different things to anybody that would watch it. And to
Hmm.
me, that's like such an intriguing thing because I want my brain to be sparked. I want to think about what it is that I'm watching. I don't want you to just tell me, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Has your character been something you've been developing since training, or has it been something that you started off as something else and then you've evolved into what you are now?
I think it's still evolving. There's a lot of things that like the basis of the character has always been there, right?
Okay.
It's always been that's never changed. I know exactly who he is and who I am. Because at the end of the day, right, like it genuinely is, it's me just amplified and put in a different arena, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where like I'm just to kind of like take a little bit of a sidetrack here. I'm super glad that I have wrestling because it's such a great outlet for me to do all the fucked up shit that I want to do and not have like repercussions or go to prison.
Yeah,
Because like
that makes sense.
genuinely, yeah. Like, and if you've ever seen any of my matches or like any of the things that I've done, but like I get this all the time. People will come up to me and they're like, you did this one thing and you smiled and I could tell that you were happy. And it's like, yeah, dude, because I am. Like, it's not me acting. Like, this is genuinely makes me happy. And I'm glad that I have this outlet to do stuff. Um, but like, so the character's always been there because it's who I am. Now the evolution of that becomes like, okay, how do I talk? How do I articulate the points that I'm trying to make? How do I wrestle? Like what types of things should I do? So like I've played a lot around with a lot of that stuff, and some things have worked, some things have not worked. I've tried to force some things, and they didn't work, and now I've had to pivot that. The biggest one is like how I talk and how I do my promos, because for a long time I wanted to be very like Jake the Snake, like very, very calm and using my words to intimidate. And I just realized like that's not me. I'm not a quiet person. So the second I started just talking how I talk, everything changed. And I'm like, okay, the character still works. I'm just more like rageful in my speech than I am calm, right? And then I can be more calm in the moments where I should be rageful in a match. And then that dichotomy battles with each other, and everybody's like, okay, what is wrong with this dude? Like, why is he yelling because this guy called him a name? But then he is taking all of this punishment and he's laughing. Like, what's going on here? Does that make
I,
sense?
I love it. I
Yeah.
love the thought process behind that. And it's different compared to what most people are, what most characters are on on TV or in wrestling because usually, um, when you're rageful, you're rageful. When you're getting hurt, you're getting hurt. When you're um, usually how they act in a promo is also how they're going to act in the ring. So to have the difference and then to contrast, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Um, so do you bring any of that MMA background into what you make into the Damon Ace character?
Yeah, to an extent. It's not like I'm not a technical wrestler, I wouldn't say. I
Okay,
can be. I was a blue belt in jujitsu and I was an orange shirt in Muay Thai, which is like second to the highest rank you can be. So I know how to do all that stuff. I just I don't need to, and I don't think it fits. If I'm talking to you and I'm telling you these stories the way that I am, and I'm walking to the ring with an axe that has a sledgehammer on it, it wouldn't really make sense for me to then go out and do a bunch of chain wrestling and act like I'm Zack Sabre Jr. You know what I mean?
it makes perfect sense.
But like as far as strikes and kicks and punching people in the face and throwing elbows, yeah, I do all that stuff all the time. It's like 70% of the stuff I would say I do.
Okay, okay. Why
So,
the axe? Why, like, what was the process in bringing an axe to the
because I
ring?
want to cut somebody's head off.
Simple. I like it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
okay.
can't. They won't let me, but
I was gonna say because it's one of those weapons in wrestling that realistically, can you use an axe?
that's the thing, man. Yeah.
It's a tough one, but
I have
it's
used it once. I cut this dude's head open with it.
okay, okay.
I did do that.
How did that come about?
It was me and Dustin Urich, who I used to
Okay,
be faction mates with, and he took a couple year hiatus because I maybe put him on the shelf for a little bit, and then he came back and he wasn't too happy about that, so he wanted to fight me, and that was a really bad decision on his part because he just kept losing, and then he decided that he wanted to challenge me to a first blood match, and I cut his head open with an axe.
okay.
Pretty simple.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
You are a like at the core, you are deep in the roots of Rocky Mountain Pro right now.
Yes.
Um, what brought you into the fold at Rocky Mountain?
I'm actually currently the Rocky Mountain Pro champion. Um, but it's actually interesting. So I didn't start here. I started at a different school, and I started in a different promotion. And then COVID happened, and we all got locked down. My other
Mhm.
school wasn't running training; they weren't running shows, and so I kind of lost a year of wrestling, really, because of
Mhm.
all of that. But then it got to a point like I had also gone through a knee surgery right before the lockdowns happened. So I was kind of struggling with that, but then I recovered and I wanted to get back into training and I had nowhere to go. And so one of my at the time, one of the other girls that I was training with, Lilith Grimm, ended up coming to Rocky Mountain Pro. And she kind of was like, you guys should come check this place out or whatever. And I don't know, for whatever reason, politics and wrestling and all, you know how it is. The whole region here outside of this place like didn't like this place, and so I always thought it was kind of a not so good place to go. Well, then I came here and I realized pretty quickly why nobody wanted anybody to come here. And it's because this is like in this region in Colorado, it's not even fucking close how good this place is compared to everywhere else. And that's what the problem really was. They were all very jealous and insecure about the fact that Matt Yaden, who is the owner and promoter here, had worked at TNA, brings out D'Lo Brown every single month to help us with all of our pay-per-views. We're an Al Snow Wrestling affiliate. Like, so basically everything that you could ever want in a pro wrestling company, we have it and they didn't. So they were mad about it. So when I came here and I realized that, I was like, I was kind of upset because I spent, a year and a half learning wrestling from people that probably shouldn't have been teaching me wrestling. And then I had to spend a year here relearning everything. So my journey's been kind of hindered, I guess, in a way, because I feel like if I would have started here when I started initially, I'd be much farther than I am now. But because of the way that it all happened, I've had to kind of relearn a lot of skills to get where I am now. And now, like, just actually, it's kind of like just this year, I've started to realize, like, okay, like I get it. I've had a lot of those like aha moments. I'm understanding this is how this is supposed to go, and it's because I have mentors like D'Lo Brown and Al Snow and Marty Elias and like Sin Bodie and Martin Casals and like all these guys that I've had the opportunity to work with and learn from. Timothy Thatcher is here all the time. I've wrestled Ice Williams, like a bunch of the ID guys come out here. Like I've learned a ton from being here. I just wish I would have been here first, like earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like not long after you make your debut at all, you would win your first championship in Rocky Mountain Pro. You'd beat
Yeah.
Bruce Wayans for the Charge Championship. Tell
Yes.
us a little bit about that night.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was in front of nobody because it was during COVID. So I think
Okay.
we had like four people in the crowd. Um, but yeah, so Bruce and I had wrestled and he was the trust champion. I took the belt off of him. And this was during the build of the wake with Dustin and I.
Okay.
And so that Charge Championship is kind of like our workhorse championship because it's our television championship. So I would defend it constantly. So it felt like a huge responsibility that was thrown on me almost out the gate, especially at a time where I had kind of realized like I'm not very good at this and I'm not really prepared for this. But that's kind of been the story of my whole career. Like I've been thrown to the fire and thrown to the wolves so many times that thriving under pressure is now just second nature for me because it's happened so many times. And that was a big one because I not only did I like win a title, but I won the title that I have to wrestle with every single week and make sure that, next week is better than this week, which is better than the previous week. So you're always kind of trying to grow. And that's what that belt does. It's a little different now because now I'm like the actual big champion. So I really only defended on pay-per-views, which kind of sucks. Like I went from wrestling all the time to now I'm kind of the commodity. I'm kind of the special attraction.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it was obviously like I'm super blessed and I'm thankful for it. And it was a great opportunity. But yeah, it was definitely very pressure because I had just like I didn't find out about it till very, very um quickly before the match had started. And I knew what that belt was. I knew what came with it. I knew the territory that I now had to compete in. And it was a lot. Yeah. But it was cool.
What was your favorite defense of that championship during that reign?
Honestly, when I lost it,
Okay.
I lost it so he's no longer here anymore. But my best friend from high school, his name was Jesus Perez. He wrestled under Balaam Links. And he and I trained together for a long time. He wrestled here with me as well. And we had a large feud that built to milestone 12, so 3 years ago. And oh no, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. It was Aces Wild of 2022 that I
Okay.
wrestled him, and we wrestled in a first blood match. And it was like the first time that he and I had kind of a green light to go out and do what we wanted to do, like go out, tell your story, do what you're gonna do. And it wasn't even so much that like that match mattered. It's what we knew was coming afterwards because we were building to something even bigger. But losing that belt to him was the only way to get there. And I think that was probably the most fun, the most successful, and probably one of my favorite matches I ever had with that title,
Okay.
which is ironic seeing as I lost it.
I'll be honest, in doing podcasting, that's how a lot of it goes, is a lot of guys' favorite matches are either the first one, the last one, or maybe with somebody they connected with on a different level, like somebody they trained with or somebody that
Yeah.
trained them, things like that. So it's cool that you kind of got a mixture of all that in
Yeah.
your last defense against somebody you went to school with and would ultimately lose to. That's it's got to be a special moment, not only in wrestling but in your personal life.
Yeah, no, it was very, very cool. And I was like I said, like it was more what he and I did after that. He and I wrestled again at milestone 12, which was 5 months after that. And we spent that entire 5 months building to that match and like in front of a sold out crowd. That's probably like I've had hundreds of matches at this point. Like I've wrestled here, I've wrestled in Utah, I've wrestled in Vegas, I've wrestled in California, North Carolina, like Texas. I've been a bunch of places. That is like one of the only matches I've ever had where I look back at it and I'm like, I have no gripes about it. I have no critiques. I have no, not like that to me was the best match I've ever had.
Okay. I like it. I like
Yeah.
um you got to show a little bit of what you have on AEW Dynamite when you took on Takeshita. What was that moment like, being able to go onto AEW Dynamite and be in the ring with somebody like Takeshita?
It was, yeah, that was very cool. That was probably one of the coolest like moments I've had.
Okay.
Um, it was 90 seconds. Like I didn't really get to do much, but just to be out there, and it was interesting because like as a performer, as a wrestler, like I'm always nervous before I go out, right? Whether it's here or there, like I've done extra work at WWE as well. Anytime you go out, like you get a little nervous. But that was really like a testing ground for me because I didn't know how I was going to react. Because you get there for that stuff, you don't know what you're going to do. You could do nothing all day. And thankfully for me, one of the security guards there, Derek Pisataro, who was also a wrestler, he and I were like really good friends. And he was kind of Tony Khan's like right hand security guy. Like he was the one in front of his door all the time. They were always traveling together. And when he saw me, he was like, "Hey, man, do you want to do something tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. Like I would love to do something tonight, but if there's nothing to have done, then it's fine." And he's like, "I'll see what I can do." I was like, "All right, whatever." So he leaves. I'm now in my head like nothing's gonna happen. Like he's gonna go talk to Tony, and they're gonna be like, "We don't have anything." Like it's fine. He comes back like 15 minutes later. What just walks by me? Just I'm sitting like this. He just walks by me, and he goes, "Hey, you're wrestling Takeshita tonight." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're wrestling Takeshita. Go talk to Christopher Daniels." And I was like, "What?" Okay. So like I put my gear on, I go to Christopher Daniels. And so now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wrestle on dark, right? So I go to Christopher Daniels and he goes, "So this is what we're doing, blah blah blah. Like your guys' time segment will be from like 6:30 to 6:35. They're doing a 4 minute promo after your match, whatever." And I was like, "All right, cool." And then I was like, wait, what do you mean 6:30? Like that's Dynamite. And he goes, "Yeah, you're wrestling on Dynamite." And I was like, "What do you mean I'm wrestling on Dynamite?" So like it was cool. That's not something that people get to do very often. And I mean, AEW gives tons of opportunity to tons of people, especially when they were doing dark and all of those things. But not a lot of dudes ended up on TV. And so to be on TV was really cool. And I remember, just to circle back to where I was, I know I kind of went off on a tangent there. I'm sorry. But to
Yeah.
circle back where I was, I was getting loaded in and I wasn't sure how I was going to react. And I went out and I was nervous, but I was really calm. And I got into the ring and it was a really bizarre feeling. And maybe it's egotistical, but I don't really care if it is. I stood in that ring and I looked out and I was like, I fucking belong here.
Okay. That was my next question. Did you like, because I've heard stories of guys doing extra work or things like that for these promotions, and it's a mixed reaction. And then others feel like, hey, this is where I need to be, or this is where I deserve to be. So you
I
can
don't. I don't think I deserve anything.
deserve
I don't.
might have been a rough word.
No, but I get what you're saying, and I'm sure that there are people that think that way. And I think I'm one of the guys that I'm like I've earned a lot of things that I haven't been given yet.
Okay.
But nobody deserves anything, especially in professional wrestling. That's a hard lesson we all have to learn. But I will say, like, I knew for a fact and still know to this day that that is where I am destined and belong. Like in a ring like that in front of 18,000 people, that's where I belong. Like there is no if and but, there's no question about it. It's just a matter of when.
What was the reaction like when you came out in Colorado in front of your people?
There was a lot of, I mean, there was a good amount of people that knew me, but at the same time, there was a lot of people that didn't know me. And why would they? They're there to watch AEW. Like they love those guys. They probably didn't even know who I was. Um, but I think I performed well. I think I did what was asked of me well. Um, And like, I think I kind of proved my point. I think I made an impact. I think after that, they're like, I was mentioned on Jim Cornette's podcast. Like
Okay.
he called me Casper Milquetoast. So like I got a nickname out of it. Like it was very cool. Yeah, and I mean like there was people that knew me,
Okay.
especially like kind of down on the floor when I was walking back after the match. There was a lot of people like, "Good job, Damon. You know, you did a great job, Damon." I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like people know who I am." But at the same time, like I don't expect everybody to know because why would they?
What was the reaction like afterwards? Did Tony or any of the agents talk to you about anything after you got back?
Oh yeah, yeah. Christopher Daniels was our agent, and he came up to me and he was like, "I was gonna yell at you for something, but now I'm not because I realized what happened." And I was like, "Okay, well, what's up?" And he's like, "Because the spot was Takeshita is fucking me up, right? I get a couple punches back on him. He hits me with a big forearm. I go down. He gives me the forearm to the back of the head. Doesn't pin me. Gives me the big knee. There's the finish, right?" So I fight back. He gives me the big elbow, bang, and I kind of took like a stutter step and then collapsed, right? Well, what they kind of, I guess, wanted me to do was get hit and drop right away. But when I got hit, they thought I was like trying to no sell him at first. And then I like dropped down and he caught my head, which is kind of what he and I had talked about
Okay.
because he wanted that shot of like him holding my head, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that I had given him that space that when I collapsed, he can catch me. So he gave me that forearm. I took like a half step back, fell to my knees. He caught me. And so when we were talking about it, he's like, "Yeah, I thought you were going to no sell him. But then I realized you were just kind of like trying to sell like you were dazed and then you collapsed. So it's all good." And I was like, "Yeah, all right, cool, man."
That's cool.
So yeah.
I've been fortunate. I've had one conversation with Christopher Daniels, and he's a great human being.
Yes,
Definitely
he
give me
is.
the time of day. So it's cool that you got to have that moment with a
Yeah.
legend in this business.
Well, it's also cool. Like, it's so bizarre, but like, we're all so blessed because I feel like this sport and MMA are really like the only two sports that you'll ever be in where you can just casually meet people that are doing it at the highest level.
Yes,
You know what I mean? Like when I
100.
was training for MMA, like I trained with people like Rose Namajunas and like Corey Sandhagen, and at the time, like Corey wasn't in the UFC yet, but he was fighting, and everybody knew where he was going.
Okay.
But like you can like I knew Curtis Blades and like all those types of guys. Like I've met all those dudes, and then you come into wrestling, and like I'm just like going to dinner with D'Lo Brown or talking to Christopher Daniels, who I watched in TNA for a decade. Like it's so weird that these people came through the TV and are now standing in front of me, and they're talking to me about what I just did. So
Definitely.
it's like it's really cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's super bizarre.
I couldn't like agree more because like we'll get into it in a little bit, but like even like I've had Martin Casals on and like I watched him on Lucha and
Yeah,
then just message him on Instagram and him be like, yeah, I'll do a podcast and then talk to
yeah,
me for an hour and then give me advice afterwards was crazy because it's like
yeah,
as a kid watching Lucha this guy is he's doing crazy things all over the TV and I'm like, oh my, but as an adult now I'm getting to have a normal casual conversation just about wrestling with him. It's kind of crazy. And then like I've done it with Sabu or Rhino or EC3, like just to name a couple. And it's
yeah.
crazy looking back on it, like how this sport works, I guess.
Yes, it is. It's very interesting.
You mentioned earlier you became or you are the current Rocky Mountain Pro champion. How did it feel for you when you actually became champion? And I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but do you feel like there's any additional pressure or responsibilities now that you hold that championship?
Honestly, man, like it should have happened a long time ago.
Okay.
I've been prepared for a while. I think I've been the best choice for quite a while, and it's finally here. And I'm gonna make sure that when my time is done, that nobody can follow it. Like that's just how it's gonna be.
Okay.
Because I've got a chip on my shoulder about it now. Because like I said, like it should have happened a while ago. and it didn't. And now I'm going to make sure that everybody that comes after me is going to have a really hard time doing the stuff I did.
So what you're saying is the goal or the vision is that you will be the greatest Rocky Mountain Pro champion to ever hold the title?
I already am.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's only been 8 months, and I already am.
Okay. So in that 8 months, who would you say has given you the best run for your money so far?
That's a tough question because I've wrestled some dudes. Timothy Thatcher,
Okay.
Ice Williams, Dustin Urick was probably the most brutal because he and I wrestled a couple of like really hard matches. Obviously, we did a first blood match, but we also did just like a straight up no DQ match. And he speared me through a table. Like he took off a turnbuckle and like took the rope off and was beating me with that. Like I've had some rough ones. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to narrow it down. I think everybody's giving me a run for my money.
Okay.
I don't think that they would be in a position to wrestle me if they couldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Um, but it's just one of those things, man. Like just they're not as good as me. So
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your history and your feud with Martin Casals.
well, it kind of just started. I've wrestled him twice before. I beat him both times, but this one's for the Rocky Mountain Pro Championship, and now that it's for the title, I really wanted I wanted to have like more respect, and I just feel like he doesn't care. You know, he's more invested in selling his energy drinks than he is about trying to beat me. And to me, like that's unacceptable. And so I went out and if anybody's watched it on YouTube, our television show is on YouTube at Rocky Mountain Pro. It's on Charged. I came out and I dressed him down because I look at him and I see somebody that has all the potential in the world, right? And I told him this when I used to watch him on Lucha Underground. I watched a man that was one of the best professional wrestlers on the planet. And then he gave up all of that because that company went defunct and he just kind of quit on himself and became what he is now. And what he is now to me, unfortunately, is a shell of who he used to be. He's no longer the moth. He's not the creepy bastard of Lucha Underground. He's just some dude that comes out in an orange vest and dances around and thinks his head is hard. And I think it's really fucking disrespectful that he isn't going to come into this with everything and talk to me and try to give me everything that he has to me because that's what this belt means to me. Like it means something to me. I use this belt to elevate that not only this company but myself. And if he's going to come in here and think that he's just going to take it off of me because what he used to be able to do, nah, it's not going to happen. I don't care about who you used to be because the guy that he is now, he has no chance. He has no chance if he doesn't come back being who he was in Lucha Underground. And I told him that to his face. And like it's to a point now where like I feel like I have to escalate something. I have to do something drastic to get him to come back and be that guy because he's not listening and he's not doing it. And I'm sick of watching him flounder while all of his peers are growing and succeeding in the business while he's still just kind of floating in purgatory. Like I want to make him better so that when I beat him, it makes me even better.
Okay. Do you feel like you can bring the moth out of him?
No, we're gonna find out.
Okay. Okay. Damon, one more question, then I'll let you go. We are halfway through 2025. What do you have in store for us for the rest of the year?
Um, Milestone next week on June 27th. If everybody could get it, tune in on YouTube. We have a membership deal. All of our pay-per-views are available on our tier 1 subscription. Um, Other than that, just trying to travel. I'm trying to get out to, I want to go out to reality of wrestling. I want to get back out to OVW again. Just kind of start making loops on TV and continue to grow and learn as a human being and as a wrestler and just show everybody what I've got.
Okay. Damon, I want to say thank you for coming on here. Thank you for telling us your story, sharing with you your championship reign, things like that. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
If you ever want to come on for a part two, I'd love to have you. Um, maybe a little bit down the line we can catch up and see how that championship reign's going for you.
Cool.
I will I'll leave it to talk to you next time then.
All right, man. Thank you.